Winx Club Enchantix, Winx Club Beyond Believix, and Winx Club The Secret of the Lost Kingdom, and Bud Bundy in Married with Children. How are you today, sir?
I'm pretty good, man. Seems like you seems like you got all my credits in a line there.
Yeah, I'm pretty impressed that I got them all in one line. So, yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
definitely. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you, man. Pleasure to be here.
So, getting right into my questions for you, David, can you tell us how you got into acting?
I got into acting when I kind of fell into it as a baby. I was 3 months old. Really, was my first job was for an actress named Lily Tomlin, who I'm sure some of your listeners may remember, and maybe a lot of them are too young to remember. But Lily Tomlin obviously is a great actor who she's on a show, what HBO show now, isn't she? Um, but anyway, I played. She was doing a comedy special, and I auditioned for it as a baby, and she held me in her arms, and she said, this is the one. And so she kind of picked me, and that was my first job, and I've been working ever since, really.
That's really great. Such an early
Yeah.
start in the acting world as well.
Oh my God, yeah, really young. And because my father was a costumer. Like he did costuming for movies and television and things like that. So I kind of he kind of opened the door with some people he knew, because he had a picture of my older brother Randy, who's 11 years older than me, up on his office wall. And there was somebody who was casting something. They came in the office and said, "Oh, he's really cute. He'd be great for this." And that's kind of how it all began.
It's very cool. Can you tell us how you were originally cast as Dagur the Deranged in Dragons?
Yeah. So again, kind of I owe my voiceover career going back to my dad. My dad again. His name is Roger, by the way, Roger Faustino. He always had told me, you should really think about getting into voiceover. It can be a great career. No, he really kind of kept trying to tell me to get into it, and I wasn't like against it by any means. I just, was busy and had other shit going on, and wasn't really thinking about that. But anyway, I finally took his advice, and I got a voiceover agent pretty early on in the game, because voiceovers are really hard thing to break into these days, because everybody's trying to get into it. People, they love voiceover. If they don't feel like working long hours, so everybody wants to get into it. But so I luckily got into it early on, and I started working. I did several what do you call it, like phone carriers, AT&T, T-Mobile, all of these kind of things, and started doing all these commercials, and I really started enjoying the voiceover game. So I started getting into it more and more. Then I started doing I did, I can't remember, I've done a few cartoons, Scooby-Doo, and a bunch of other stuff, and I really started to get, hooked on it. I was like, I love this work. So then I ended up building a little kind of recording booth in my house here, so that I could really start auditioning on as many voiceover auditions as I got, because it's hard to sometimes always get down to the agent's office and read, if you're busy, doing this or that. So I really wanted to make sure, because I know it's a numbers game at the end of the day. It's like, how many baskets can you put up? Can you throw up? One's bound to go in. So I just kind of looked at it that way, and I started reading on just anything they got me. And so I started consequently getting, better and better at doing it, because I was practicing all the time. And then when Dagur came along, that was, I guess, I want to say maybe 2014 or 2013, 14, somewhere in there. I auditioned for it. Right when I read the character, I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be hilarious. I love the idea of the sort of bumbling bad guy, the guy who thinks he knows it all and is a real badass, but really underneath it all is just doesn't really know much and is kind of stupid. And that just always makes me laugh. And so I auditioned for it, and I auditioned for it with excitement because, again, it was something I really thought I could do well at and have fun with. And luckily for me, the producers, Art Brown and Doug Sloan, thought the same. So I got real lucky.
Definitely. So what were you told about the character when you went into the studio to record him for the first time?
Well, I had more known about the character through reading the character description when I got the audition in the first place. And then, of course, when I read the script, it obviously made sense as to where they were going with this guy. So, I mean, what they told me was just an affirmation of what I already really knew. Again, that this is a guy that is probably, really hurt down deep and really wants to be noticed and loved, but instead he tries to get attention by being this, villain, but at the end of the day, he's not the greatest villain in the world because he's not the smartest guy in the world, and he's, he's scared down deep type thing.
Definitely. Can you tell us what it was like bringing him to life on Dragons? Were you given a lot of freedom when it came to voicing him, or were the crew particular about how they wanted him to be played?
They had a pretty specific idea of what they were going for, but again, under Art and Doug's direction, they were great directors. They always gave me great ideas, things that I always hadn't necessarily thought of. And you don't always get that with a lot of directors. You kind of show up with what you think is the best idea of what you've read and your best way of how to record it or film it. And that's what you get. On film sets, you'll get some directors that'll make you like really change your performance and go, oh wow, that's something I didn't. But it's not that common in the voiceover world. So they were cool because they always bring new ideas and so that was always great. But at the same time, they gave me a lot of freedom. Like if I wanted to ad lib a lot of lines, it was something that they absolutely allowed me to do. And the writing was always great, but they always allowed me to play around a little bit and add this or that. So that made it a lot of fun.
That sounds really great. Was there ever a time where you ad-libbed a particular line and you just thought afterwards, like, that's such a great line? Like, do you ever remember any of those?
Of like something I came up with or something that they had written?
Something you came up with.
Oh, you never know what they're going to end up using. You can only tell by how much they laugh, so I wouldn't remember a specific one right now, but I just remember that you knew it was good because you could see them like cracking up behind the glass. So you're like, oh, that must have been a good one. And then by the time you see it air, because it's been so long between recording and animation and everything, you forget whose line it was by that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the benefit of our listeners, we will be discussing the final season of Dragons, so if you haven't watched it, or binge-watched it, or whatever our particular listeners do, there are spoilers that we'll be discussing now, so if you haven't watched the final season, this is your spoiler warning.
It's your spoiler alert warning, yeah.
Yeah, just have to make sure we put one in there. So, obviously, like I just mentioned, the final season of Race to the Edge was recently released on Netflix, and the last we see of Dagur in King of Dragons Part 2 is him getting married to Mala. So I'm going to ask this as kind of a funny question. When you originally started voicing Dagur, could you ever actually imagine him getting married?
Absolutely not. I mean, as you saw, Dagur took such an arc. He went from before he went to prison, he looked completely different. He had a completely different look, and then he went off to prison, and then he looks like a crazy badass. But I never imagined the arc that he would take, let alone get married.
Yeah, definitely. And what was your reaction when you read the script for the final season and found out about their relationship?
I just thought it was hilarious. I mean, Art and Doug and their team is just always coming up with funny, surprising. I mean, even like Trader Johann and his whole arc was kind of a shocker to me. So I just thought it was hilarious, and it was great.
Definitely. Though I'm pretty sure the Dragons community can agree with me that we no longer call him Trader Johann, he's Traitor Johann.
Oh wait, what did you first? What do you call him now?
Well, the joke was that his name was Trader Johann, now he's Traitor Johann.
Oh yes, exactly, Traitor Johann. Exactly, I love it.
Yeah, it's a good play on words. I wish I came up
I
with
like
it,
that.
but I
Yeah.
didn't.
Oh yeah, I wonder if the guys have heard about that. I talk to them a lot, Art and Doug. So I'll ask if they've heard that yet.
I really hope they have, to be honest. But now it may not always have ended up so well for Dagur by the end of the show, because of course, back in season 3, we had the excellent episode "Family on the Edge," one of my personal favorites of Race to the Edge,
Mm-hmm.
where Dagur was
Mm-hmm.
seemingly killed. Did you actually believe he was killed off then, or did you always suspect the writers would bring him back?
Well, when I first read it on my own when I got it at home, I thought, yeah, okay, well, this is it. He's this is the end of the job. It's always every actor's worst nightmare that you're going to find that day when your character gets killed off. But it's just the way it goes. It's just how I mean, I think about all the poor actors on Game of Thrones and not knowing what any day they read a script, not knowing if their number is going to be called. But so that's what I assumed. But because again, I keep mentioning Art and Doug, we've become really good friends, even beyond Dragons. Now we still remain close, and they're the ones who reassured me. They go, "Oh well, we have more ideas for Dagur. This is just kind of something we're running with, but we're planning on bringing him back." So then I kind of rest assured, because I really liked being a part of the show. I didn't want Dagur to die.
Absolutely, yeah. It would have been a great redemption for him, like, if he did actually die, but obviously I was glad they brought him back at the same time. But I have to tell you,
Yeah.
I have to tell you something funny. You'll find this hilarious, actually. So we interviewed Dragons writer Jack Thomas a while back, and he wrote Family on the Edge. This is hilarious. I haven't thought about this in a long time. But were you going to say something there?
No. He wrote which one now?
He wrote Family on the Edge, the episode we were just talking about with Dagur's apparent death. So, like, there was this funny thing, that story that he told us, which was that when the episode was released, like, his daughter was a big fan of Dagur, and so when he was seemingly killed, like, his daughter was, like, crying a lot.
Right.
Yeah. And, like, the story gets better, like, like, I mean, it's bad enough that, like, you're making your own kid cry because you killed off a character on a TV show, but, like, his wife actually hit him because of it.
Oh my god.
Yeah, because he made their daughter cry because of killing Dagur.
Oh, that's genius. No wonder they had to bring him back.
Yeah, exactly. After that, I'm not even sure if Art and Doug know about that, but like that's something I was just like, I have to tell David this.
That is very funny. Have you interviewed Art and Doug?
Yeah, twice actually.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, they're really great, but yeah, I just had to tell you that funny story because I thought it was hilarious. Yeah, I even joked to Jack that I wolf punched him as well, so... Yeah, but I'm a pacifist. I didn't mean it. I didn't actually mean it. I would punch him, but that's
Of course,
irrelevant.
of course.
um,
That's cool.
yeah. So, what would you say was the highlight of voicing Dagger for you?
Oh man, the highlight of there's so many. I mean, just obviously being just a part of the How to Train Your Dragon. You know, what's the word I'm looking for? The whole just the movement. You know, I mean, from the movies to the series to whatever else they'll do with it is just being able to be a part of that is it's very cool. Just like it was for me on Avatar, just being able to be part of that, series and being involved in a great project like that. So that's how I felt about this. And then, just recording there at DreamWorks facilities, not that we always recorded there, but sometimes we would record there. And that was just a tremendous, gorgeous studio, one of the most beautiful studios I've ever recorded in. So that was a fun experience. And then meeting the fans, because I'll go to, some of these Comic Cons sometimes, and meeting the people who watch the shows, and the kids that love Dagger. It's always awesome, and it's always fun. And then of course just working with Art and Doug, and they're watching them at work and how they work, and Art would direct a lot of the voiceover sessions, and he was always just great with it. And like I said, would come up with stuff I didn't think of before that would be very helpful and funny. So the whole experience was a really positive one, which is always great, because you don't want to have a shitty experience, obviously.
Definitely. How would you describe the experience voicing Mako in The Legend of Korra?
It was a different experience than Dagger in that, well, we did a lot more ensemble records when we were doing what's the show you just mentioned?
The Legend of
Legend of Korra. Legend of Korra, yeah. When we did Legend of Korra, we did a lot more group records and ensemble records, because I think the producers just, whenever they could try to make it happen that way, they'd rather do it that way. Or at least that we would do it in pairs, like I would do it with P.J. Byrne, who played, Bolin, or with Janet, who plays Korra, obviously. But sometimes we'd have the whole group. Whereas with How to Train Your Dragon, or Dragon's Race to the Edge, I never did a group record. Not even one time. I always did all of my records single, which was cool, because it was fun that way too, because the directors and the producers, they got to focus on your performance, and like I said, guide you and help you in any way they could. Whereas when you're doing an ensemble record, it's kind of like, the director has to focus on so many actors at one time. But voicing that character of Mako was very cool, because again, it was being associated with a project that already has a successful brand, and that already has a fan base. And so it was just very cool. And again, those writers, Michael and Brian, and another pair of great writers. I mean, everything they wrote was so great. It made our job, makes the actor's job really easy. So those are two shows that I've been associated with that I'm just really proud to be associated with, because of the writing and the people behind them, and that they're already, proven products.
Definitely. Which would you say has been the most challenging role in your career so far? Not necessarily just voiceover, but also on camera.
Oh, wow. That is such a good question. The most challenging. I would say all jobs have their own challenge. I mean, I try to make even the jobs that seem like they're not a challenge, that seem closer to you. I guess you want to put as much work into those as well, because it'd be really easy to get lazy with those kind of roles, I guess. And so you want to, still do as much personalization work and preparation work as you can. So I'm hoping every job is somewhat challenging. But I would say that the most challenging jobs are the ones that are poorly written, because those it's really hard to do anything with. But these ones like Dragons and like Legend of Korra, and even live action shows like Married with Children, and these things that are so well written, it makes it a lot easier to do the role. I don't know how to explain it, but
No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense because, I mean, like, if you have a bad script, it's, like, really hard to, like, bring it to life. So it's like, when the writing is
well, yeah,
good, it's easier to put in the performance.
yeah, it's like the old. I think it's the old saying is, if it's not on the page, it shouldn't be on the stage. So
That's a really
so
good
going
saying.
with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've actually never heard that one before, but I'm going to remember that.
Yeah. Sometimes it's true. I mean, it rarely is a fact that happens, but as a sort of a fantasy land, that would be the best case scenario. That if it's not great on the page, it shouldn't be on stage. But but anyway, those are the most challenging. Is when the writing is difficult. Then it's like you're trying to figure out what the hell you're doing.
Definitely. So my final question for you, David, do you have any upcoming acting roles or any other projects that you would like to talk about?
Right now, I am. What am I doing right now? I'm writing a lot. I'm actually writing and creating an animated project with a partner, my writing partner, as we speak, and we've been meeting with a few companies around town and getting some good traction, and we're really excited about that. As well as writing another half-hour live action comedy. So I've been working on those two projects. Also doing I do a radio show every Wednesday night. It's a kind of like, well, it's not really a podcast. I guess it's more of a radio show. But then we put them up online later. People can listen. But that's on Wednesday nights on Dash Radio. Dash Radio Wednesday nights, and my show, it's called the Old Scratch Radio Hour. And then I, do some DJing that I've been doing more of here and there, and working on another animated thing right now that I not allowed to speak about quite yet. So you'll be seeing, more and more of me as the year progresses.
That's really great, definitely. So that's all of my questions for you today, David. It's been a pleasure talking to you on the podcast.
Absolutely. And, for all of your listeners, you can always just check me out on my Instagram account at David Faustino, or Twitter at David Faustino, to see, what my latest and what I'm up to. But I appreciate all of your listeners and everybody who's been supporting the show, and all of the fanship and everybody that hits us up on social media. So thank you guys for enjoying Dragons. We really enjoyed doing it. We had a blast. So thank you.
You're welcome, and hopefully we can talk to you again sometime.
Sounds good, man. We'll get those time slots worked out.
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
All right, brother.
Yeah, well, I look forward to talking to you again soon. Take care, and thanks again for joining us. Bye.
Thank you.
Time to wrap up today's show. Make sure to check out our podcast links. Check